Hello and welcome back to Mindset Matters. My name is Victoria, and I'm very glad you're joining me today for some conversation around navigating life through a lens of resilience, presence, and gratitude. So, thank you for joining me. Let's jump into today. Um, the other day it dawned on me that I have almost no social life at the moment. And the reason I realized this was because I actually went to a concert last night. So, a couple days before the concert, I was thinking about it and I was like, wow, I'm really excited for this. Partly because it's an artist I want to see, but also just because I realized that I hadn't done anything as of late, like at all. And it got me thinking about this whole concept of having a social life versus having friends, because I don't think those two go hand in hand, right? Like you can have friends without having much of a social life. And you can also have a social life without having many real friends, which is kind of a sad thing to think about. So that's what we're going to dive into today, because I was kind of thinking about it and I was like, wait, is this a bad thing? Is it a bad thing that I don't have a social life right now? Is it because I'm prioritizing other things? Is it bad to prioritize other things to a point where I don't have room for a social life? Or is it also just the fact that every time I try to hang out with people, like everyone is busy or plans get left behind or people cancel and it's hard to reschedule? Because I think that has also played a role in me not being social as of late. Plans falling through, not being able to reschedule, busy lives, etc. So I guess I feel like the last few months I've been in a season of life where I've been focused on work. I've been focused on healing my knee, which definitely is a part of what took a toll on my social life because I wasn't physically able to do a ton this summer. And now that September's rolling, I'm back teaching and things are busy and I'm enjoying that. So there's that whole side of it as well where, I'm just getting back into the swing of teaching, and that can be very consuming, especially at the beginning of the year. So I think partly it's kind of the season of life. So I think, our seasons of life definitely change and our priorities kind of shift with that. And I realized that having a social life hasn't been a top priority for me lately. And I had so much fun at the concert. It was great. I had so much fun. It was nice to catch up with my friend, walk over to the venue. It was a perfect weather. It was really nice. And I had so much fun. Truly. I had a great time. And it got me thinking, like, wow, maybe I should be trying to do more social things. But at the same time, I'm in a season of life where I'm also okay not being super busy all the time, because I think what can happen is you make plans and sometimes that gets too busy to a point where I feel like I'm overstimulated socially, or I need a break, or I hate canceling on people last minute, but sometimes it happens because you're just so all consumed and you realize you pack too much into your schedule and you're tired and you need to rest. So what is the balance? Because I think I've been, without really even realizing, I've lost social life balance. And I think balance is really important. And if you're someone who works a lot or you're busy with a lot of different things, I think it can be hard to prioritize socializing with other people. And again, you also now have in the mix the fact that we're all growing up, late 20s, early 30s. We're all in different stages of life. Some people are married, some people are starting families, some people are traveling, some people are just doing things that you don't find fun anymore. And so it can be challenging, I think, to navigate a good balance of your social life especially if you are someone who works a lot, maybe if you're single, and maybe if you live by yourself, because all of those things can end up being a little bit secluding. So I want to jump into the dimensions of wellness. I use the dimensions of wellness to set my intentions every week because I find it helps me narrow down what I actually want to work on, what's important to me right now, etc. So if you don't know, the dimensions of wellness are as follows. There's 7 of them. Physical wellness, emotional wellness, social wellness, environmental wellness, intellectual, occupational, and spiritual. And I love using these dimensions to, like I mentioned, set my intentions each week because it helps me think about, well, what areas of my life are lacking or what areas of my life are a bigger priority right now. And I'll be honest, my own peace of mind has been a very big priority for me lately. And I keep going back to this. Like, what is one of my biggest priorities? Well, I want to have peace of mind. I want to protect my energy. I want to surround myself with positivity. And I think that also plays a role in kind of wanting to just keep to myself. Because I feel like the more you're around people, the more opportunity there is for negativity to creep in. And this kind of goes back to the idea that it's so easy to complain. And I think people complain a lot just in making casual conversation. And I think when you become aware of that a lot of people have this default setting of just complaining, you realize that you don't want to be around it because I don't want to participate in negative conversations. And it could be, again, in so many different settings, I notice that this happens. So that makes me want to be very meticulous about who I surround myself with because I think when you're around negative people, it becomes easier to join in that conversation and to start complaining, even if you're someone who doesn't want to default to that. It's so easy to kind of blend in with what's going on around us, I guess. So because of this, I feel like I've kind of secluded myself a little bit. And I don't think that that's necessarily bad. Again, it's this idea of being intentional with who I surround myself with and also enjoying being alone and also being okay with spending time by myself to protect my positive energy, if you will. But at the same time, it's like, okay, but you got to get out there. And I can't spend my whole life by myself. And that has not been my intention either. And so I am struggling a little bit to find that balance because the friends that I do want to hang out with, a lot of them are people that I don't necessarily see super often. And it can be challenging to coordinate schedules and schedule, time to see them. So it's like by default, I just end up spending a lot of my time by myself. Going back to the dimensions of wellness, I really like them because it helps compartmentalize your life and say, okay, physically, am I doing what I need so that I feel physically well? Emotionally, am I taking care of my mental health? Social, am I pushing myself to see people? Environmental, do I keep my space clean? Intellectual, am I reading? Am I making time to learn new things? Occupational, do you like your job? And spiritual, whatever that means to you, whether it's religion, whether it's spirituality, mindfulness. I think the spiritual wellness can take many different forms for different people. But I think in different seasons of life, we prioritize different dimensions of wellness more or less. And I think that's okay because, again, having all 7 of these, like 10 out of 10, is probably unlikely because I feel like we can't always have it all at once, and that's okay. But it comes back to this idea of balance. Like, okay, what is the balance if I want to protect my energy and I want to be positive and surround myself with positivity, but I also want a social life, but I also don't want my social life to surround certain activities that other people might be doing. And it becomes this kind of challenge of, well, do I just try to make all new friends? like, what do you do? So I think my first piece of advice is, if you're struggling with this balance, I think one thing that I could push myself to do, or one thing that you could do, is finding some sort of hobby that is social. For me, that used to look like sports. I signed up for a lot of sports in past years, and that's really helped me have like a social commitment that I'm going to every week. And it's great to be with the team, and that can be really fun. And you have this like common goal which you bond over. So I love playing sports. That for me is not really a possibility right now. So I think exploring different hobbies, that maybe it's a reading club, book club, I guess that's called. A book club, it could be chess club, it could be anything, but any kind of activity that you go and do is a great way to keep your social life moving. Because again, it's not that hard to commit to something once a week for like an hour or two. And it also feels good. Earlier this year I was doing my boxing, and that became so much for me. But it was definitely the social aspect of that Fight to End Cancer experience was great, because I'm showing up twice a week, training for a couple hours with the team. We all have this common goal we're bonding over. And I get to work on my physical health at the same time as feeling social. So I think also that plays a role, as that was a big part of my life that then ended, and it was a thing that gave me a lot of sense of purpose. I have a whole episode about my Fight to End Cancer boxing experience if you're new and listening to this and like, what the heck is she talking about? So I can direct you there if you want to know a bit more about that experience. But again, that was a season of life that is different than the season I'm in now. That season of life was like physical fitness, social, and I would say spiritual were like very encompassed in this experience. So for me, those were my priorities at the time, and like my own emotional, like mental clarity as well. Whereas now that I'm injured again and I've had to slow down, the social aspect of my life has definitely taken the decline. And again, I don't know if it's bad or not. Like, I think this could just be a time when I'm just not feeling very social, and that's okay. And if I can make sure I get out to do things here and there, then that's okay. I definitely have felt bouts of like loneliness, which I think is normal for literally everyone. But again, it comes back to this idea of like, well, if I'm content in what I'm doing and I feel like I'm still busy and somewhat making time to be social, then I think I'm okay with it being less of a priority compared to other dimensions of wellness at this time in my life. Eventually, I would love to get back to feeling more social, but I think allowing your life to kind of ebb and flow and allowing yourself to feel whatever is making sense for you at a given time is okay. But I do think I could push myself a bit more. And I think it's important not to get too comfortable in your current situation too. Like, I had so much fun at the concert and so much fun just being out and about last night that I was like, oh my gosh, I miss this a little bit. And I do want to make time for this, because it's important to socialize and catch up with people and just, again, being around other humans. Not to say that I'm not around people. I teach, so I'm with other teachers and hundreds of students like every day. So that in itself takes a toll too, because it's like I'm so socially, I guess, stimulated at work that I also feel like I come home and I need a break. So that also leads me to not want to make a ton of plans. So I think that's also been a factor just in the past month or so while I'm getting used to the school rhythm again. Maybe once I'm used to it, I will feel like I'm up for pushing myself to be more social again. One thing I think it can be challenging too, I mentioned this earlier, but at this age, people are doing all sorts of different things. And I feel like it's normal to get to a point where all your friends or a lot of your friends might be in slightly different stages of life. And that makes it even more challenging to see people and to make things work. And that can be really hard and that can be really lonely and that can feel challenging. Um, Even when people cancel plans, that can really hurt your feelings. Recently, I had a friend, and if she listens to this, know that I'm not mad at you, but I never expressed that I was upset. But anyways, I have a friend who canceled on me like 4 times in a row, and it was just, there was a lot going on, and I felt like I also had a lot on my mind that I really wanted to hang out with her just to like have company, and she couldn't make it last minute. And then it just like kept happening where she kept being really busy. And I felt like, oh, I hate being the last priority, and I hate being like, out of all the plans you have this week, that I won't mind. Or like, oh, we're just supposed to hang out one on one. It's like not as big a deal as like an event or a big dinner you had to go to or whatever. And I get that. But it still kind of hurts to feel like you are also other people's last priority or just not a huge priority. And that can change and shift. And it's like, I know this person is one of my good friends. They weren't intentionally trying to ditch me or anything. But yeah, it definitely at the time hurt my feelings. And I felt like, dang, like it kind of sucks to be like the last priority, And I deserve to be prioritized. And I know that. Anyways, so I think it's just hard because we're all in different stages of life and people are busy doing different things. And also, while I might not be prioritizing my social life right now, someone else might really be prioritizing their social life. And then when I'm ready to prioritize social dimension of wellness, someone else might not be. That also plays a role in that you have to be mindful that not everyone in your life is going to coordinate all at the same time. So that's why going back to this idea of having a hobby or a club to join, I think is a great place to start to push yourself to be social. Because like I said, I don't want to get too comfortable where I am, where all I'm doing is like focusing on work and protecting my energy. I saw a funny TikTok. It was a guy watching a movie with his cat. He said, when you protect your energy too much and you end up being on your third movie in a row with your cat on a Saturday night or something like that. And I thought that's so true because you don't want to get to a point where you're too comfortable in what you're doing. And I think even with dating is social, and that can be something that's so draining sometimes, like to go on dates, the effort it is to talk to people, and it can be pulling teeth to try to like even feel like you can connect with someone. And I don't really want that right now. I'm not looking for that right now. And it's not something, again, I want to prioritize. But I have to understand that, okay, if I'm not prioritizing putting myself out there, then it's not going to lead me to change anything about my current situation. And again, I think it's all about being content with where you are, but doing what works for you and knowing that shifts and changes. Like if you're in a stage of life right now where you're like, wow, I also haven't been very social and I feel like it's so hard to coordinate with people and no one is available, or I feel like I'm not a priority to my friends. I think it's okay to recognize that and to then say, okay, this is the reality though. What can I do to maybe make a shift or a change? And maybe it's just that you need to branch out a bit. If you feel like you need to expand your social life and it's not working with the people who are currently in your life, then find a hobby, put yourself out there, do something to push yourself, because at the end of the day, you only have control over yourself, and you can't control what stage of life someone else is in or what their priorities are. And I also realized like there's a lot of things that I've said no to because it wasn't my priority at the time. And so I had to say no. And that was like, okay, I'm giving up the social interaction because it's not the type of social interaction that I want right now. And that's okay. But you also have to be okay with it. Like, people will say you can't do the same thing and expect to get different results. So if there's something about your life that you want to change, well, you can't expect to get there if you don't change anything about your routines or your practices. So for me, this is almost like me to me of, okay, figure out what your priorities are right now and really deep dive into what it is that I'm looking for in my life right now. And then what are the kind of actions I need to take to get there? Because, yeah, social life has not been a major priority, but I think maybe that looks like, okay, once a month, I want to do something that I feel like is really fun. Once a month is not a lot, but once a week, I think making big plans to like go out once a week is too much for me. But maybe it's like, okay, try to reach out to a friend to go for coffee, like at least twice a month or something. Like, I think that's where you have to start, is figuring out what your priorities are. Like I said, peace of mind, still a huge priority for me. I enjoy eating lunch alone at work because I just want the brain break and I don't want to feel like I'm constantly being around conversation all day. It's a lot. It's too much. But with that, I'll say, okay, once a week I've been trying to go down and eat lunch with other people because I think that that's a good thing to do for the social side of things. So I hope this is making sense. Like, try to find balance. So I guess I want to wrap up on the general idea of being independent, because I think at the end of the day, all we have is ourselves. Not to be dark or not for this to take any sort of negative turn, but at the end of the day, you are the only person that you can truly always rely on, right? Because you're always with yourself. So I think learning to be okay with change, learning to be okay with figuring out what it is that you want, independent of what other people want around you. I think something I used to struggle with was noticing that my friendships were growing and changing, or that people in my life were growing in a different direction than I was, and not knowing how to handle that, and feeling like I was either being left behind or feeling like I was growing at a faster rate, or just different direction. And again, that led me to feeling really lost because I felt like I wanted my friendships to really work and I wanted to be on the same page with people. But then that made me feel like I needed to change myself to fit more into what they were doing. And like that, I think doesn't work or doesn't lead you to feeling fulfilled. So through this whole journey of presence that has really been the last year almost, I've just really been able to step into this sense of self and this sense of purpose and this sense of knowing that I will always be okay, and that no matter what friendships grow and change and end, I'll be okay as long as I'm being true to myself. So with this whole season of life where I'm not being very social, while I don't want it to last forever, and while I'm noticing that I could be pushing myself out of my comfort zone a bit more, or again, looking for maybe a hobby, if it's not a huge priority to me, I'm not worried, because I'm content in what I'm doing and I am happy with the direction my life is going. So I think it's okay that I'm less social, or I don't want to do the things that other people are inviting me to do. And I know that my true friends are still going to be my friends, if I don't go to every single plan every weekend. That's another thing. You don't have to always say yes to everything because you're afraid that people are going to leave you if you don't say yes, right? Like, your true friends will still be there. And I love that I have so many friendships that it's like I don't see them for maybe a few months, or I have a couple friends I maybe see twice a year. But when I get to catch up with them and we retell each other what's going on in our lives and we just have fun together, it just brings me so much joy, and I love that. So again, it's okay that friendships grow and change, and it's okay if social life is not really high up in the priority list right now. So that's what it looks like for me, and I'm okay with that. I even think like having this conversation and kind of for the first time really thinking through these ideas is leading me to feel okay and more happy with my situation, because I started out on this episode really questioning, like, wait, is it bad that I'm not so social right now? Or is it, is it something I should be pushing myself to do? But again, it's like, you know what, Vic? Like, you're content where you are, so allow yourself to be there. And if you start feeling really disconnected from people, or you start feeling lonely, or you start feeling whatever, well, that's a time to reevaluate those priorities and set those intentions of, okay, yeah, once a week, I want to call a friend, or every other week, I want to try to meet up with someone. And maybe that once a month, trying to do something fun or planning things ahead of time, right? Like, whatever that looks like. I'm realizing, like, yeah, like, I'll get there. It's fine. But because I'm content with who I am, I'm content with what I'm doing right now, and I'm content with the direction I'm kind of steering myself, if you will, I know that everything else will be okay too. And it allows me to feel a little more at ease with the fact that I'm not very social, because I know it's my intention to be positive. It's my intention to be well-rounded. It's my intention to feel calm and at peace. And if I have to not be as social or just not spend a lot of time with certain people in order to achieve that, I think that's okay. So with that, my battery is about to die. Perfect timing. I'm going to end this here. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will chat with you next time.